Welcome to another episode of The King's Couch. I'm your host, Sulo King. And today I have the pleasure of having another SCPA alumni on my show, the lovely and talented Tiffany Daniels. She's an actress. I think you used to dance too, right?
Yeah, I still do a little bit of that.
Yeah, kind of a jack of all trades when it comes to the creative types. Tiffany, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. And it's an absolute pleasure to do this Zoom edition of my podcast show with you. So what I want to do is I want to go back to the beginning, and I want to know what your early life inspirations were. Like, what inspired you to get into, the creative side? What year did you start going to SCPA? And let's talk a little bit about that.
Sure. I think my mom grew up as a very shy young lady, and I think that she wanted me to have a lot more opportunities than she was given. And I think that she had always had a love of the arts for herself. So my mom put me in a dance class when I was 3 years old. It was a combination ballet and tap class, if I recall. So it just allowed me to not only start socializing with people, but it also allowed me to start moving my body. And I very quickly picked up skills as a dancer, and I fell in love with movement very early on. So much that I have very vivid memories of me like bossing some of the other little girls around in my class. Like, you're doing it wrong. We're not going to win this trophy if you keep doing it that way. So it was something that I took very seriously, very young, but not knowing at that age that I could make a career out of it. The only thing that I think that I identified as working in the arts was Broadway. That was the only thing that really existed in my mind as a possibility to continue working in my art and my artistry. But it also seemed like a really far away place, and like, how does one even get to Broadway? So those were always just kind of like thoughts in the back of my mind. But my mom put me in a dance studio that did participate in competitive dance. And so there was quite regularly dance competitions that I would attend. And I would have dances with groups, with duos, with trios. I was very active in the dance studio. And so I had a lot of opportunities to win a trophy. And I started winning some trophies. And then I started winning a lot more trophies. And I was like, oh, this is just something that I'm excelling at. And other people are recognizing that as well. So all of those were just like little seeds that were planted in my younger days. But my mom's brother, my uncle, he married this woman named Donna, who I was just infatuated with. And my introduction to her was, she was a gymnast. And dance and gymnastics kind of like coincide in some worlds. So I gravitated to her. But when I met her, they were like, Donna was in a Better Cheddar's commercial. Do you remember Better Cheddar's? I'm really aging and dating
forever.
I know, really aging us right now. But Better Cheddar's was this regular cheese cracker that we participated in growing up. But she was in a Better Cheddar's commercial, and she was doing a backflip in the commercial. And so they showed this to me, and I was still really, really young. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but they showed this to me, and I was like, how did she get in the TV? Like, how do you do that? Like, how is she's standing right here showing me this commercial, but she's also in that box. So I was just fascinated. And I realized that there were other avenues that could be taken besides just getting to Broadway, where you got to like perform. And so that was also another seed that was planted. And I just wanted to figure out, it never like dawned on me to ask her, how did you get in the box? I was like, I just got to figure out how to get in that box. I
How
really
old were you when you were having this kind of curiosity?
definitely like single digits still. I wasn't even 10 yet.
Okay,
But
I imagine you like 6, 7 years old, like,
yeah, something
'cause
like
that's
that.
how I was, like watching TV. I was like, this is amazing.
Right. Like,
Like, how do I do
do
that?
that? How do
Yeah.
you get in that box? And so that was just another seed that was planted for me. So my mom definitely started taking me up to Los Angeles. You know, I'm from San Diego with you. She started taking me up to Los Angeles for auditions when I was very young, but she was a single parent and she was working a government job at the post office, and it was just really challenging for her to be able to manage the audition life in Los Angeles and work a full-time job in San Diego. So she unfortunately like had to present, an option. Do you want to keep dancing with your friends at the dance studio, or do you want to keep auditioning for TV shows and commercials and things? And when you're that young, like all you want to do is hang out with your friends. As much as I wanted to get in that box, I still was like, but my friends. So I chose dance. And so that was where my artistry focused, for the rest of my time in San Diego. So yeah, I definitely got bit by the theater bug when we were at SCPA and auditions for the main stage musicals started happening. I think my first musical was No No Nanette. I can't remember who was directing or choreographing. I can't remember any of those details, Sulo, because it's been so long. But that was my first musical that I had auditioned for at the school. But I had started dabbling in a lot of other things around San Diego. There was a great program that didn't last very long. My gosh, it was so incredible, called City Moves. A lot of artistic children got to participate in this huge musical, two huge musicals that they put on. Dawn Robinson was one of the stars of the second musical. So I think they just went around to all the different like art schools in San Diego and auditioned a bunch of kids. And I ended up getting to be a pretty featured role in both of those productions. So I just started like dabbling in a lot of different things. I did the Nutcracker every year with the California Ballet. I think ended up doing that for like 6 or 7 years. There was just always some performance. There was always some show that I was very much involved in. And my mom was just very active in doing that. She's actually still doing that with my niece and nephew. She's got them involved in lots of productions around San Diego. So a lot of my early love for the arts came because of my mother and her desire to give me something that she wasn't able to get when she was younger.
Relate to that.
Yeah.
My mother's the reason why I ended up at SCPA. I was
Right.
kind of a rebellious kid, felt like a loner, didn't really know where I was accepted.
Yeah.
And for those listening and watching that are unfamiliar with what we keep referring to as SCPA, it stands for the School of Creative and Performing Arts, which was kind of like a magnet school, is a public school here in San Diego. And you can't just automatically get in. Back in those days, it took me like, I think 4 years on the waiting list to get in. Maybe it might be a little more lax now, but
No, you have to audition now.
oh, do
Everybody.
you? Oh, wow. Well, now
Mhm.
it's even more top tier.
Mhm.
Okay. For example, I've been playing in the same band 15 years. I've known my guitar player's son, Caleb, since he was born, and he went from, just like me, from 8th grade. Actually, I was 9th through 12th, but he went from 8th grade to 12th grade. He just graduated there, got very into the arts, was on the ASB,
Yeah.
was very into acting. Mr. Swain was still there at one point and remembered me.
Awesome.
But the one thing I will never forget about SCPA is how welcoming everybody was. And I finally, for the first time in my life, fully felt accepted and welcomed into this diverse group of people. And I didn't think that 20 something years later, I'd still be in contact with all these people from high school. And a lot of my friends and even girlfriends I've had are like, what is with you and these SCPA kids? Like, I don't get it. I don't talk to anyone from high school,
No,
really.
I know a lot of people have these kinds of connections with the people they went to college with, but
Exactly.
I'm like, no. I mean, I love some of the people that I went to college with, absolutely, but my heart belongs to SCPA always and
I
forever.
figured out what I wanted to do with my life. I fell in love with video production at first. I wanted to go to film school and
Yeah,
make movies, but music was always my number one passion. It was the one thing I resonated with, connected with, that always kept me grounded and gave me that drive. And I went from being like a daydreamer to just checking things off the list, you know,
yeah,
that bucket list we all have in life, things we want to do. And I'm still achieving those goals on that list.
yeah,
And it's so inspiring to see others like you, like Carlton, like Andre Day, people even below us, like excelling and achieving, those levels of arts and creative, like aspirations that they wanted to achieve.
yeah.
So let's for a second talk a little bit about how you left San Diego. Let's
Mhm.
fast forward just a little bit, and what made you decide on wanting to pursue acting?
I went to Cornell University for my college experience, and it was such a culture shock. It was such a shock. See, that's the one thing that I feel like SCPA didn't prepare me for necessarily,
Mhm.
how crazy the world actually was outside of those walls of SCPA. I mean, we came from a space of like welcoming and everyone's loving and everyone's accepted. And it didn't matter if you were gay, straight, bi, brown, black, purple, orange. It didn't matter. None of that mattered. Right. But the world was like, whoa, very, very different. So I went to Cornell University, and I was just in such shock in how to educate myself there, because it just was like such a different way of learning. Um, and the arts was obviously not as big of a focus at Cornell. It's a, Ivy League university. So there's like so much happening and so much going on. So I kind of lost my train of thought. So I lost the trajectory that I was on with the arts for a little bit while I was at Cornell. But I met a wonderful young lady there that opened my eyes to, thinking about what life is going to look like after Cornell. And she had done a scholarship program at this dance studio in New York City called Broadway Dance Center. And me coming from California and going to school in Ithaca, New York, I was like, I don't want to be in the cold anymore. Like, I'm done with the snow. So I wonder if there's an equivalent scholarship dance program on the West Coast. And so I just started Googling on my breaks in the computer lab at school. I would just like start going and trying to figure out what I could do to get myself back on the trajectory of at least dance and movement, my first love. And so I found a scholarship program at a dance studio called the Edge Performing Arts Center in Hollywood, California. And I saw that they have auditions every single year to give the scholarship program out to 20 students. And so I knew that that was something that I was going to pursue and that I was going to try and get as soon as I graduated. So it gave me like, okay, I can just be at Cornell and I can do whatever I want here. I can learn this, I can learn that, I can get my regular degree, but I know I'm going back to the arts and I'm going back to LA. So I came up to Los Angeles the August after I graduated in June or May. And I auditioned for that scholarship. I stayed at Charles Brown's apartment because he lived like 5 seconds away from the dance studio. And I walked over to the dance studio and I went and I got that scholarship. So they give it out to 20 students a year, and I just happened to be one of them. And that was my introduction into the entertainment industry in LA.
Okay. And then what led you to start acting?
I for that year that I was on the scholarship, we were not allowed to audition or do anything really industry related without them like kind of navigating it for us, because they wanted to make sure that we could put our best foot forward and like get some really solid training under our belts. So I was dancing, 40 hours a week with this program. And at the end of the year, they put on a scholarship showcase. There it is. They put on a showcase for all of the agents, all of the dance agents in Los Angeles. And I think at that time there was like 5 or 6. And so once we finished our showcase and the agents had a better idea of who we were as dancers, then they picked who they wanted to have interviews with, and we all ended up signing with an agency. And so from there, that's when I just started dabbling in auditions and like what auditions as a dancer would start to feel like in LA. And it was really intimidating. It was really overwhelming. So much about just auditioning as a dancer is like how you walk into the room and like what you look like, and like it didn't matter how great of a dancer you were for some of these jobs. So it took a long time to get used to it. But my agent got me an audition for The Color Purple, the musical. And it was the first national tour of Oprah Winfrey's The Color Purple. It was still running on Broadway. Fantasia, I think, had just taken over the lead role in New York City, but they were putting together their touring cast. And so I got the audition for it. And, long story short, I ended up booking that job, which was amazing. But it was also the first time that I was given an understudy position. I had done a ton of musicals at SCPA and a ton of musicals outside of SCPA, but I was always in the ensemble. I was a dancer and I was totally fine just being back there. The Color Purple gave me an opportunity to understudy a principal role. One of the 8, there's 8 lead roles in that show, and she was like number 8, but it was still one of the leads. And so I had to go on. One day, the girl that played the role called in sick, and they were like, "Tiffany, you're up." And I was like, holy shit, I have to do this. I have to step out of the background and I have to do this role, because the show cannot go on if I don't do this role. So I had to do it. And let me tell you, it was a full blackout moment. I have no idea what happened. I still, to this day, have no idea what it felt like, if I even said the right words, if I was standing in the right spot. I have no idea, but I know that I did it. And I made it through that show. And then I was like, I want to do more of that. I want to do way more of that. So I had the wonderful opportunity to go on many, many times during the 2 years that I was in that show. And so it started to feel a little bit more comfortable. It started to come with a little bit more ease. And then I decided to leave the show after 2 years of touring, which was a lot. And then a week later, the girl that played that role that I understudied, she left the show. So Color Purple called me and asked me if I wanted to come back, but just as that role, no longer an understudy. It's mine. Do you want it? And I was like, hell yes, I want that. Give it to me. So I went back and I finished the Color Purple tour for that last year as Squeak. And so it was my first taste of getting to bow by myself on stage. Normally I'm with like the rest of the ensemble and we all just kind of bow together. My first time bowing by myself. It was my first time getting my name a little bit higher on the roster. It was my first time getting my own dressing room. There was just like certain things, certain level of respect that come, as you get higher in the hierarchy. And it just started to feel right. So I knew that I wanted to start pursuing more film and television acting while I was on that tour. So in the cities that we were in for longer periods of time, like 2 months, 3 months, I would sign up for an acting class when in whichever city that we were in. San Francisco, I think I took one. Chicago, I took an acting class. And it was just really to like get my feet wet and for me to start working through some of the nerves that happen. Because when you are so comfortable as a dancer and expressing yourself through movement, it gets really intimidating and scary to start expressing yourself with words and sound. So I needed to work through a lot of those hurdles. And I did a lot of that work while I was on tour. And so as soon as I got back from tour, we were on tour for 3 years total, literally almost to the day. As soon as I got back from tour, I started taking acting classes like crazy in Los Angeles, just like go, go, go. And I was lucky enough to get an agent that started submitting me on like really small roles. They're called co-stars or under 5 lines. So just like really tiny little things, like where I would have one word, sometimes one line, maybe 2, but I started getting a lot more of those auditions and I booked my first line on television in 2013 on a show called Anger Management with Charlie Sheen.
Okay, yeah, I remember that show.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you just got the bug from there, and then is that currently what you're up to these days? Is more acting than anything, as far
Yeah.
as your art side goes? And pretty
Yeah. I
cool.
would say that acting is my predominant source of my artistry and my income. But I most recently just finished another stage production, and I'm in rehearsals for another stage production right now as well, where I get to utilize my dance skills as well. So dance is not completely dead in my world at all. And this last show that I did was a musical, so I had to like rev that vocal box back up as well. So I like to keep all cylinders running as much as I possibly can. But I never really got to, I told myself a long time ago, I was very much so a jack of all trades. I felt like I was good at everything. I could sing okay, I could move okay, I could act okay, but I wanted to be really great at something. And acting was the one thing that I hadn't tried and I hadn't put my entire self into yet. And so my last, I would say, like almost decade has been very much dedicated to honing and perfecting that craft. And it's worked
That
out.
success is starting to really pay off now. You have a lead on a show. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I this year, I guess it was March, April, around that time. So the beginning of the year is this thing called pilot season in Los Angeles. It's not necessarily a season anymore. It's like throughout the year, there's constantly new television shows that are being presented to networks, especially now with all the streaming services. So
Yeah,
pilot
it's
season.
changed because of the whole definitely, yeah.
Absolutely. The
Yeah.
game is completely changed. And the game has completely changed because of the pandemic as well. So at the end of this pilot season, if you will, I was auditioning a ton. I was working. I had booked quite a few television shows at the beginning of the year, and I was in a rhythm. I was in a flow. And this one project from Nickelodeon came across my inbox. It was an untitled show at the time, but it was a role that was a mom of 2 kids, a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. And I've been told very often that I don't look my age, and so I have a hard time when I get auditions that require me to be a mother. I have a hard time believing that I'm actually going to be cast as that. So there was just something about this audition that allowed me freedom to play, because I was like, I'm not getting this. There's no way anyone's going to believe that I have 2 kids. So I'm not getting this. So let me just play and have fun. But I just kept getting further and further along in the process. And then it came all the way down to what the final audition is it's a network test with all of the executives at Nickelodeon and all the executive producers for this particular project. And like all the creative, everybody is just like watching you and seeing if you could, if you're believable enough to play this role. And I got all the way to the end of that network test. And this was the third time that I had gotten this far in a television audition process. But this was the first time that it felt like possible. I walked away being like, oh, I might book this. I might actually book this. And I did. And so now I play a mom on Nickelodeon on a show called That Girl Lele. And I've got 2 kids, and Lele is kind of an adopted kid in our family as well. But we shot 13 episodes. They are currently airing on television right now. We have another episode coming out tomorrow, 2 episodes coming out tomorrow.
Streaming, you know how they release like full seasons now?
No, this is they're releasing them one week at a time.
Okay, old school.
Style, yes, but they are available to stream once it airs on Nickelodeon.
Okay.
And we do have a distribution deal with a streaming company, a very popular streaming company, but I'm not sure that I'm allowed to talk about that yet. But
Okay.
they will be streaming on a very popular streaming service once they finish airing on Nickelodeon. So January.
For our viewers, can you tell the name of the show and the best place for them to tune in?
Yes, the show is called That Girl Lele, and it's on Nickelodeon. So you can watch it on the Nick app, and I believe Paramount Plus plays Nickelodeon shows as well. But Nickelodeon is probably your best bet right now. But later in January, you'll be able to watch it on one of these platforms that everybody already has already.
How long of a process did it take to film all 13 episodes?
We started filming in the end of April, I want to say. And it took us till the end of August. There was a couple COVID scares in there, which prolonged our filming time. There's some quarantining that needed to happen and production shutdowns a couple times. But end of August, I think, is when we wrapped.
And I can only imagine that feeling of when you wrapped, that level of gratification and just this excitement and relief at the same time. The pressure is off your shoulders a little bit,
This has been like such a I've done a lot of work in television, a lot of work. I think I've been on like 60 television shows at this point. But there was just something about this production. It automatic, like from the beginning, like we felt like a family. We felt like we were going to have a good time with each other. The guy that plays my husband on this show, his name is Tommy Hobson. This is actually our 3rd television show working together. So we had this friendship for over 10 years going into this production. And I'm almost 95% sure that our natural chemistry of our 10-year friendship already is what helped us book this job together as husband and wife, as mom and dad. So there was already an element of community and safety within our relationship. And being the parents on the show with a bunch of kids, having that in the leadership position helped so much right away. And there's a lot of experience. There's a lot of experience within these kids. They're all so ridiculously talented that we all just wanted this to be something amazing. And I think because we were all aligned on that thought process, that infiltrated our storytelling.
Yeah, I was so proud when you announced that you had landed the role on this. And
Thank you.
And I know that feeling of excitement too, like you accomplished something. You achieved that next step up in your career.
Sure, for sure. I've been chasing the life-changing yes, is what I call it.
Game changer. Yeah, big time.
It was a game changer for sure.
this could propel to so much more for you in your career. And I'm
Yeah.
so proud of you and excited for you at the same time. And
Thank
I haven't had
you.
a chance to watch the show yet, but I'm going to go
Okay.
and check it out. And
Yeah.
it's I remember when Maritza Murray was in that movie with Rob Schneider.
Yeah.
What was
White
it
chicks,
called?
right?
Yeah, White Chick. And
Hmm.
that was a really exciting moment. I remember like nudging my date. I was like, oh, I went to high school with that girl. I used to sit right next to her.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. Absolutely. And Samantha Esteban, I don't know if you remember her. She was a
Oh
little bit
yeah.
older.
Saved by the Bell, the new class. Yeah, she was also a classmate of mine for a while until she just disappeared one day.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually still in contact. Samantha and I, we were friends from like elementary school from our dance studio days. So we had a long, long history. But yeah, all these people like got inside that box. And I was like, whoa, if we can do it, we can do it. I'm gonna do it.
That's it's interesting because Carlton and I were talking about that on his episode on the King's Couch, and we love seeing and we're both promoters, so we love helping promote people,
Yeah.
and with this podcast show, I just want to help inspire others to achieve their dreams and goals. And I always reiterate this one fact. I mean, back in high school, I was kind of like that, just class clown, daydreamer, but I had like big aspirations for myself
Yeah,
in my life.
for
And,
sure.
now I've achieved all those things. And I've actually lectured before when I had my studio about like, you can do anything that you really want, mind over matter. I'm not a recording engineer whiz, but I'm a great producer. And here I am today in my own, recording and rehearsal studio. I achieved that goal and that dream, and I was giving this lecture to a bunch of kids from all over the country. It was a UCSD program about like music technology. They were all going around to different facilities and trying to figure out exactly what they wanted to do with their careers and their lives, and maybe even potentially going to UCSD. One of the instructors was an acquaintance of mine and asked if he can come in. And last second, my business partner couldn't make it. And I was like, oh my God, pressure's on me. So I just had to go from like a life experience and
Yeah.
give them the tour. I remember I went around the room when I finished it up and I asked all these kids, I was like, do you want to do this as a profession or more of a hobby, music? And some said, hobby. And then I remember this one kid I really connected with. I actually made him tear up. And it kind of made me like, thinking about it, like, makes me a little emotional because he's like, my parents discouraged me. They said I could never make it playing violin. And that's what I really want to do. And I was like, you know what? My parents were kind of like that. My father was more on my music side than anything, but my mother never gave up. And I kind of referenced her and I was like, you know what? I've been there too, but you can prove them wrong. And you know what? You got to live your life for you. And he was like so like moved by that, and he's like, thank you, thank you. And then one of the instructors chimes in, he's like, how do you do it, man? I can't even get through these kids. I was like, because I was once there. I
Yeah.
once had that mindset. And now, like, fast forward, me working as a health coach, I'm also a certified life coach with all my patients. I put myself in their shoes, and I try to see it from their perspective. I don't just try to give them mindful advice that I think will work for me or something that I learned. I try to learn about them and then just give them the best mindfulness that I can and possible care. I try to put the personalization in personal care. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I took all the attributes from entertaining that I've always used into what I do now to make them feel comfortable, feel good, leaving here in high spirits. And that's my goal that I set for myself with everything that I do. And
Love it.
even with this show, like I want our listeners and our viewers to be inspired by your story. So speaking of that, let's go back to your story.
Sure. Where would
Um,
you like me to pick up from?
well, so we're currently at where you are in your career, but um, let's talk about any kind of struggles. I was just talking about being discouraged and,
Mhm.
not really sure of like where you want to go, what you want to do with your life. Did you ever feel like an element of that, that like maybe I should switch careers, maybe I should try something different? I know a lot of people go to college and they'll get multiple degrees and then they'll do nothing with sometimes any of those degrees. Like my sister, for example, she switched majors a million times. Now she's a sociology major, or sorry, PhD, what am I saying? First doctorate in the family. It's kind of weird calling her Dr. K.
Yeah, she is on fire, that one.
Yeah, I call her freedom riders. I'm like, you're gonna like, your goal is to like educate people, and racism and bring people together. And I admire that, about so much. And that's what I loved about our high school.
Yeah.
Like, magic of unity that we had together, all of us. I mean, look, you and I are sitting here catching up after all these years.
Yeah, long time.
But anyways, going back to
a ton of rejection in my life and a ton of like plot twists in my life, for sure. I knew that I wasn't going to pursue what I got my degree in either, and so did all of my peers in school. I was actually voted by my senior class to not do anything with my degree. I did hang it up on the wall, so it looks very pretty, but I knew that I was going to walk away from what I got my degree in as soon as I could, because I was much more interested and much more, passionate about the arts. So I think that something that you have to understand as an artist in the entertainment world is that you're going to receive way more no's than you are yeses. I was going through my auditions just before we got on Zoom together and looking at all of the things that I've auditioned for over the last 10 years. And I have this column in the spreadsheet that I made about all of my auditions for how many of them that I actually booked. And that column is real empty. But I have worked a ton. I've worked a lot, and probably a lot more than the average person, because I was able to not only book television shows as an actor, but I was also able to book television shows as a dancer. So I got a lot more experience because of my versatility. But I've been rejected so many times. I've gotten so close on so many amazing opportunities and then had it taken away from me. In the industry, there's a term called pinned. You've been pinned, or you've been put on a veil for a job. And that means you could be one of 3 or 5 or 7 people that they think could fill this role or do this particular job. And when you're that close, you're just like, you can taste it, you can smell it, you know what I mean? But there's been so many times that I've been put on a veil, or I've been pinned for a job, made it to the top percentage, and then they're like, okay, you've been released. Thank you so much for your time. Some of those pins or veils have lasted like 3 months. I was on hold for a job on this beautiful television show that I just loved, and I really, really wanted it. And I was on hold. I was pinned, meaning like they had me for a certain amount of time, maybe like 6 months. It would have required me to move to Florida for 6 months. I would have been working consistently for 6 months, which is like a blessing in the entertainment world. It was just like this juicy opportunity. And I was on hold for 2.5 months, I think, 2.5, 3 months for that. And finally, after 3 months, they were like, no, we're going to go with someone else.
Oh, no. That's soul crushing right there. And that anticipation of waiting and waiting.
3 months.
Yeah, I've been there before.
Just waiting, like wondering if your life is about to fully change, waiting for that life-changing yes, waiting for that game-changing moment. So I've had so many things like that that have happened to me over the last, 10, 20 years or so of me being here in LA. Um, I've had to build some thick skin. I've had to generate tools to deal with rejection. And it doesn't get any easier. If I didn't book this Nickelodeon show, there definitely would have been a mourning period. I would have been really sad about not getting that show. And I have to deal with those moments. And it's always about how you pick yourself back up from those moments, because some of those moments can absolutely destroy you, especially as an artist. Because as an artist, you're not hiding. You're putting your entire self out there with your music and your art and your everything. You're completely exposing yourself to the world. This is me. Do you like it or do you not like it? And
Not everyone's going to like you
not
regardless. And
everyone's
that's
gonna like
something that you have to accept. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And somebody might not like you because you look just like their ex-girlfriend or their ex-boyfriend. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Or they just hate on you because they want to be like you and they don't have it in them to try to pursue that.
For whatever reason,
Yeah.
people don't book jobs all the time. And if you're not able to move through those moments, then it's going to be a really challenging life for you. And so I experienced enough of rejection in my earlier days to understand that, like, okay, these are going to be really hard times, but I need to generate some tools. And I started giving myself a timer. Some of the best advice I had ever gotten from some of my mentors and coaches: you are allowed to feel sad about not booking a job. You are allowed to feel broken because you put your entire self into something and somebody said absolutely not. You're allowed to feel those things, but you're allowed to feel them for a limited amount of time. It doesn't matter how much time that is, but give yourself a limit so that you can feel all the feelings, write in all the journals, meditate, do whatever it is that you need to do to move through it. But as soon as that timer dings, or as soon as that limit is up, you have to move on and you have to move forward. And that's what I've done over and over and over and over and over again.
That's wonderful advice. That was actually my next question was going to be to any, people out there that are interested in trying to get in the industry. What kind of advice would you give them? And you pretty much answered that question already.
Yeah, I mean, there is a little piece. If you want something bad enough, you just have to keep going. And that goes along with the timer advice as well. But I started using a hashtag a long time ago. 2 hashtags, actually. When I started booking my co-stars, which, remember, are those like really little parts, 5 lines or less in television shows. When I started booking a bunch of co-stars, it was just like 1 line at a time. 1 line at a time. We're going to get there. Eventually, I started getting more than 1 line. Eventually, I started getting auditions for much bigger parts and much more parts that required a lot more responsibility on my end, but 1 line at a time. And I was just cranking along. It doesn't seem like the way that television is presented now in films, it seems like it's so easy, right? It's so easy to get one of these little parts, but there are so many people. Just to put it in perspective, my first line on television was on that show Anger Management that I told you about. And there was probably 3,000 actors submitted for this 1 line on television. 3,000. And at the time, this was 2013, self-tapes, doing your auditions at home and sending in your tape. That wasn't really an option. That wasn't really a thing. All auditions happened in person in the room. And a casting office only has so many hours in the day that they can see actors. And so if 3,000 people are getting submitted for this role, they probably have time to audition, let's say, 60 people max. You're lucky enough to get an audition. Like, that is a win right there, just getting the audition. And I took that in. I honored that. I was so grateful just to be auditioning and getting that practice and getting in the room and getting in front of people and feeling those nerves come up every single time I had to go in and do my thing in front of people. So I felt very fortunate from the beginning to understand the what's the word I'm looking for? The ratio, of how many people are trying to be seen, how many people actually get to be seen, and then how many people actually get to be considered. So no matter what, you just keep going, because it's not, another audition is going to come. There's always going to be another audition. They're never going to stop making television. They are never going to stop making movies. They have found so many more ways to make movies and make television. There's so many things out, there's so much content out there that none of us can watch all of it ever in our whole lifetimes. If we stopped right now, if they stopped making things right now, I still don't think we would all get through every single movie and every single television show that has been made.
I really don't think you can hit that Guinness Book of World Records for that.
Right.
Yeah.
No, because it's ever changing, it's ever evolving. So you have to keep going.
I mean, think about it. Look how long it takes just to settle on something on Netflix, Amazon. I mean, I've literally had nights where I've spent like an hour to 2 hours just adding stuff to my library. And then by the time I want to sit down and watch something, I'm tired. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to go to sleep now.
Totally.
You know what I mean?
So there's going to be more opportunities, and you just got to get back on the horse. You have to just keep going. That's my other hashtag. Just keep going.
Just
And
like that. Just keep going.
Just keep going. No matter what, just keep going. Because one line at a time, you're going to get there. And I would literally tell myself that in the mirror on a regular basis. Just keep going. And it has paid off in an incredible and amazing way. And I am so, so thankful that this is the show that I landed on. We have yet to be told whether or not we are getting a season 2, but we are doing so well in our ratings and our numbers. And everybody that I have spoken to that has had the time to sit down and watch the show has had nothing but wonderful things to say about it. So we haven't heard officially yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and just put it out there in the universe. We're coming back, baby. Season 2.
Manifest that.
Absolutely.
I love it. I
Absolutely.
love it.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm rooting for you too. And like I said earlier, if anything, this is just going to propel your career and get your name more out there as a lead. And that's what I want to see. I would love to see you in a feature film. I think you're a brilliant actress. I always had a lot of respect and admiration for you, even though we weren't super close in high school. But I mean, I knew like a little group of us. I was like, they're going to go off and do something. I mean, I used to make fun of, I was always like, I got nominated class clown, most likely to fall asleep in class, because for me, I loved entertaining. That's why I would get bored so quick, Sure. And I did a lot of different creative things, from photography to a little bit of graphic arts that didn't really, get me going. Video production. In fact, Mr. Rothschild invited me in to video production because he saw my dedication to editing skate videos at lunchtime. And I asked permission. I was like, can I go in here and edit these videos? And as a matter of fact, I still talk to Mr. Rothschild to this day. Shout out to Neil. He actually came to my grand opening party to my studio, and I took that love for video production and I've started making music videos for the band that I sing in. And amazing. I entered the film festival circuit for the one I released last year. We won 5 awards, and that just gave me more motivation to keep going and make the videos even better. Now I have a whole video production team that I assimilated. They're doing stuff for my work, my day job now, my mother's center, and I'm about to partner up with them. And my goal is to make a feature film. I actually will have another guest that was on the show. If you go back to, I can't remember what episode it was one of the earlier ones. His His name is Ben Johnson. He's part owner of the venue Casbah. He started out as a bar manager, but he became an author first. It was his first real creative endeavor. He was like me, a singer and just kind of a jack of all trades. And we knew each other. We always had mutual respect and whatnot. But he spent 5 years putting together his first feature film. It's called Fanboy. It's based on a fictitious band, and he's the lead, and he wrote and edited and put the whole thing together himself. And
amazing.
His first 2 screenings were sold out at a drive-in. And
Yes.
you know that drive-in, South Bay, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but now it's on Amazon, and yeah. And regardless of what people think, like, he doesn't care, and I've seen some of the comments on IMDb or whatever, and I'm just like, you know what? Why don't you go out there and make a movie? You think you can do better? And this guy didn't know what he was doing. And honestly, like, when I interviewed him, I was like, you are a natural. I mean, we're already acting when we're on stage. So, in front of the camera, I know that's a little more pressure. I can relate in the sense of being put into a small confined vocal ISO booth, trying to track vocals. That is the most nerve-wracking feeling, even though you know you can stop and they keep going again. So I'm sure you can relate when you're doing takes, because you just want to nail those takes.
Yeah.
But you got to just keep going. For me, I like to have my band like do something to trigger me, to bring out that emotion inside me, make fun of me or whatever, and just it's a tactic that works. It's worked for years. And I some of the new guys that have my band, they're like, really? You want me to kind of piss you off? I'm like, well, not like to the point where I hate you after the take, but I mean, in the moment, yeah, just say something, or motivate me, whatever it takes. You just got to bring that side out of you, especially when you get frustrated with yourself,
Yeah.
So,
yeah, that's really great. So I'm really proud of you too. You're doing some really great stuff. So thank you so much.
I just, I never want to stop, just like you. Same thing. And that's why I mean, look, I never stopped contacting you to get you on this show. I was very persistent, but I also know how busy our lives can be when we're in the industry. And I've been told many times I have a lot of patience, and I do. That's what I wished I had a lot more patience here in my day job. But I gotta start off from the beginning, work my way up, and that level of starting over, or starting a new career, or a new part of your life and new chapter. And it's just been through a lot during the pandemic. We all have.
Yeah.
But anyways, we're nearing the end of this episode. So here's the part of the show where I have all my guests, give a positive affirmation, or, share a catchphrase that they live by. So now's your turn.
Oh, I feel like I gave you all of mine already in my hashtags.
I feel like you did, but if you had to leave the viewers with an empowering message, like one message, what would it be? I know that's kind of a tall order, but
I think that if there is something that pulls on your heartstrings, if there's something that you're passionate about, then do anything and everything that you can for the rest of your life to pursue that. And you will live a happy and full and passionate life. It doesn't matter if you ever get there. If you are constantly chasing your dream and your passion, then you will have lived a full life.
Eloquently put. Very beautifully put. And I hope that we can have a reunion sometime, me, you, Carlton. Next time you're in San Diego, I would love to see you, actually give you a hug.
I was already telling Kim Goring just yesterday, and Carl, that I'm planning on doing nothing after the 24th of December, and I'm going to be in San Diego just chilling with my mom. So I think that there is so much room and so much opportunity for all of us to get together many times.
Because I missed our 20-year reunion, and I miss you guys. So I'd like to try to set something up.
Yeah.
Maybe Carlton and I can get together and put together like a Facebook event invite for something fun?
I
Small
have
little get together.
no doubt in my mind that the two of you together can make this happen. And if you need me to co-sign on anything, just say the word. But yes, I'm absolutely very much excited about getting as many people together over the holidays as possible. So I'll be there.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show,
Thank you.
Tiffany. I'm so proud of you and your success. And please, everybody, I'm going to be posting all the social links so you can follow Tiffany Daniels. And please watch her show. Once again, what is the show? That
Girl Lele on Nickelodeon.
That wraps up another episode of The King's Couch. I'm your host, Sulo King. And I always say, stay radical. Catch you next time. All right. Bye, Tiffany.
Bye. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Take care.